everybody. Welcome to a new episode of Real Business Roundtable. Today we're going to talk about something that seems obvious, but we want to drill down into the details why it's not so obvious. We're going to talk about wholesale versus retail. When it comes to...
And we're discussing prices.
When it comes to actually providing a service, a product, it's obvious to people when they say, okay, I'm in business, I have to buy wholesale. Unfortunately, there are vendors out there that solicit small business owners and say, hey, I can do this rather than you hiring an employee. But then you look at the numbers and you're like, I would have to triple my prices for me to use this convenience. So we want to dive in a little bit on the true differences between wholesale and retail in a variety of business situations.
Yeah, this isn't just for services. This isn't just for services. This is for it could really be any business. It could be a product. It could be food. It could be a service. Any business. There's different prices. B2B is normally, okay, well, no, that's not true. But there's wholesale prices for the product and there's retail prices for the product. Wholesale normally isn't as high of margins, but it's more quantity. So when you first hear the title of this video, which is wholesale versus retail, it seems like a no-brainer at first, but this is what I'm talking about. Let's say you own a construction company and you have a subcontractor that's going to, let's say, install a roof for you. And obviously your pricing, I'm guessing, is based on square footage. So let's say you charge $500 a square. You're going to get a slew of crews that are going to contact you and say, hey, I can do the job for $250 a square. Then you're going to find some people that might say, I want $350 a square, $400 a square, but they're still the subcontractor. So what happens is sometimes there's this like gray area, or there's this massive extreme difference between wholesale and retail where it doesn't make sense. It doesn't leave much meat on the bone for you as a business owner to advertise, to grow, to hire people. So you want to pay very close attention to those people who are trying to offer you convenience, saying, yeah, I can do this and that for you, no problem, at a wholesale rate, but their wholesale rate needs to make sense. And whether it's an employee, whether it's a contractor, you'll have somebody with a skill set that I've actually met people who had great talents. I have a meeting with them, we grab a coffee. They're throwing wild numbers, so high that I would have to pay money to have them help us facilitate a solution. Well, so it doesn't make any sense for the business that we run, and it's all about negotiation and margins. If you're providing a service or product and a business wants to utilize your talent or your service or product, whatever it may be, you have to provide it at a wholesale rate. But in return, there's going to be a much larger quantity of that product or service. So it makes sense in the end. It's all this type of stuff. It all depends. When it's a product, the wholesale product, you're selling it to a business to sell to the consumer, it's a little bit of a different story, but it's the same thing. Wholesale price for a larger quantity of product being moved. For a service, you're going to be booked up, but you're providing it at a.
If you're someone that has a skill, or you have a software, you have a technology, you have a crew, whatever, that's going to do the work. When you're trying to build those partnerships where someone is going to actually sell for you, this subtracts you ever having to advertise. This subtracts you having a lot of overhead that's typical to, let's say, the person that's actually taking in the business and having the contract signed under their name. So they have additional costs that they need to pay. If you come in as, let's say, a wholesaler, be very careful about the rates that you're saying to the person to try to get them to choose you, because what they're thinking right away is, well, I still need to advertise. I still need to pay for this. I need to still pay for that. And when you come in with an insane amount, you're not... Obviously, everything can be negotiated. I'm just trying to give word of advice to people out there that are trying to build, let's say, reseller partnerships. Pay attention to what you're saying and you might have something that's great, but if someone is looking at the bottom line as well as considering your quality or your reliability, whatever it might be, just be fair and understand that if you come in at, say, 40% of retail, 30% of retail, that's a little bit more digestible than just coming in at 60, 70% of retail and saying, yeah, you'll get 30%, to the person that has to absorb all those other costs. Another thing that's really important that I think people need to keep in mind is if you're a wholesaler, you don't need to really sell, because unless you're looking for new resellers, but you have someone actually subtracting the process of sales and the headache of sales, they're subtracting that out of your model.
Think of it this way. Instead of having to run ads, instead of having to go out and do cold outreach, whatever it may be, you're saving that time and money spent on doing whatever it is to bring in the sales. And the company that you're providing a wholesale price to is going to be doing that. So it evens out. It evens out. Once you find a good price between the company and you as the provider, it evens out, and it makes sense in the end, as long as enough quantity, as long as that company's doing the right job.
Let's put it this way. I know people who have amazing capabilities that have something that I can't recreate. There's a barrier of entry. They provide a wholesale rate. They travel the world. They're not worried about sales. They're not really, they say they own the rights to something, and they just reseller, boop, 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 and then they're all set. That's because it worked out where it makes sense for a business to resell something. You see a lot of IT companies, they'll partner up with, like, say, Microsoft, or they'll partner up with all these different technology groups. They're all working as basically glorified sales reps to move these technology products. But I can guarantee that they worked out a deal that made sense for them. So when you're out there as a creative, as a solution provider, as a software company, as a facilitator, or whatever, or a crew doing construction, pay attention to whetting the appetite and satisfying the person you're trying to get to do sales for you. Hypothetical, say you're a home builder and you have an architecture company, let's say architectural design, and they're doing layouts for new home designs for for people. Those people need to get the house built. If you're a home builder and you partner up with architects that are approached by people who want to build custom homes, you just kick back and you get all your jobs thrown to you. You don't really need to advertise a whole bunch. So you want to keep that in mind. When you're subtracting the sales process, the sales burden, the sales headache, when that person that's going to take that away from you and make your business much more easy to run. I don't mind sales, but I'm just talking about a different side of the coin. It's a blessing, and you should try to work out a deal that's going to work out for both of you. So yeah, you're going to have higher volume of work, but you don't have to worry about sales ever. If you're not built to sell and you can't handle that stress, you can't handle those hills and valleys that come with business, you don't want to deal with it, then put together a sweetheart deal for the person that you're trying to partner up with to sell your product or service. Like when it comes to actual profit margins, let's say for construction, like what do we hear all the time for roofing is like the wholesale rate's $250, and then the retail rate is about $500. That's about average. I want to say about average. Yeah. So that construction company is making a markup of $250. So they have to pay the $250 a square, but they're making the $250 on the other side. So now it's it's profitable for them, but you have to keep in mind, they still have to run their ads. They got to run their website. They got to run all their creative. If they're working with an agency or they have an internal team, they have to still pay for that also. So you might want to consider and say, hey, let's do a 3-way split. If you charge $300 a square or $500 a square or $600 a square, let's do 2-2-2. 2 goes to you, 2 goes to us, and 2 goes towards the facilitation of more business. Or work something out with them that shows that you understand and you're considerate to what they're trying to do, because what they're trying to do ultimately is going to benefit your wholesale business. I want people to understand the difference between wholesale and retail. So if you work as a consultant, if you're dealing with that customer directly, charge retail. If you're dealing with someone that's going to sell something and then give you business with no burden of selling, you need to sell at wholesale, not retail.
Okay, so
countless times I've dealt or interacted with people that start throwing retail rates at me, and I'm thinking, I wouldn't even have a business if I agreed to this. This is insanity. No one would buy my product. No, doesn't make financial sense. Then when you get into those crazy numbers, now your market's getting smaller. Now you can sell to less people. It's just bullshit that I just don't agree with.
So how do you create that wholesale price? But you also have to, with taking into consideration, you got to make money off this wholesale.
Yeah, you got to take into consideration gross profit, net profit, overhead, cost of goods sold. You need to look at all of those things and explain to the person that's trying to partner up with you, like, hey, listen, I got to pay all this shit over here. Like, I'll lay it out. And any small business owner should lay it out. You shouldn't just say no. No. Like a little kid. No. You're an adult. Explain why. Say, well, and then when you shine light on the reason why, 9 times out of 10, they go, shit, I know what you're saying. Okay. All right. Then they're a little bit more reasonable. Versus them being bitter that you're just like, oh yeah, putting up all the millions in my pocket. No, I have overhead, dude. I have bills to pay to run this ship.
Yeah, so when you're coming up with a wholesale price, you got to make sure it works out for you and for the person, the other business you're partnering with.
Yeah, so just rule of thumb, if you want to just say, oh, how do I figure this out? Say you provide some service or product and you're like, well, how do I figure this out? If you have the customer in front of you and you're selling directly to the customer, not a reseller, then you can give them your retail rate all day and it's fine because they're just dealing with you. But the minute that you're dealing with someone that is facilitating that direct with the customer for you, then you got to have less skin in the game. You have to understand that someone is literally acting like a sales rep for you and they deserve a piece of the pie. And that will make today's episode a wrap. Thank you for watching this episode of Real Business Roundtable. Be sure to subscribe,
like, share, comments.
Comment, share. Okay.
Turn on post notifications so that you get notified every time we post a new episode, and also check us out on Instagram where you can find updates, clips, and info and more.
Okay, bye.
Peace.
Okay, bye.